Sunday was not an easy day for us. All day long, the wind had been blowing quite a bit. And as we approached the unlimited races, we were hopeful that the forecast from the meteorologist was going to be accurate and that the wind was going to shift from the west. And if it shifted from the west, it was going to give us an opportunity to race.
Basically, I think it was Thursday we really started talking about it, that there was going to be big winds Sunday afternoon, late afternoon. So, you know, big winds, and of course Reno, it brings some interesting weather in. One day and the next day it's absolutely gorgeous. And there is a rule, and I forget the sustained 27 knots or 32 knots or something, then it's not for the individuals to say, hey, you know, that's too much wind. We set that up so no one would have to be the first person to say, hey, I really think we better think about this.
We had set an upward limit for unlimited racing at gusts of 35 knots, and the winds were actually gusting up to 38 knots. And our main concern, however, was the wind direction. It was a quartering wind on runway 14, which is the primary runway used by the racers in the case of a Mayday.
One of the biggest concerns was there's only one runway in use, and if you had a Mayday airplane that plugged up that runway, it was going to compound the problem for anybody else that was still up, which has happened a lot of times.
We were in our pilot briefing for the T6 class, and as we were sitting there, the flags were starting to stand out pretty tall and straight. We dialed up the AWOS on a handheld, and they gave the speed 29 miles an hour. 30 is our limit. That would eliminate pretty much the runway we wanted to use. It was a direct crosswind, and it would only leave the alternate emergency strip on the west side of the field. If that runway was tied up with an emergency, you'd have 6 unhappy boys out of gas.
We knew it was going to be of concern, and the airplanes in the Gold Field was a big concern for me because of the speeds, 100+ mile an hour speed differentials between the aircraft. The T6 guys, you know, I made a wise decision, not much movement in the T6. The jet guys, not much movement in the jets. But with the unlimited, there's movement because we're basically holding off for Sunday. So if we would have started it, you know, my hopes is we would have been either on the Bear or past the Bear at basically the home pylon, or the start of the race. And but we had those slower airplanes in there that were big winds, slow airplanes. It could have, you know, been a recipe for disaster.
Well, I was aware that they called off the Gold T6 race, and I was kind of surprised. It just didn't seem that bad. It was, you know, windy, but not terrible windy in the pits.
We discussed it in our briefings. We discussed that and the slower aircraft and how much more attentiveness that Will would have to have, and how much we can help him on the ground watching as he was overtaking the slower aircraft.
So as we introduced the unlimited class for the final race, we discussed what we might do or what we might consider, and we thought we would continue on with the introductions and see if that forecast in fact became true and the wind did shift.
Standing in the pits, it didn't seem too bad. When we got down in front of the grandstands, Steve and I were looking at each other. We both fly, and we were saying there's no way we'd go flying in this weather. Why would we go race in it? At that time, I believe it was gusting to 31 or 34. The light poles were bending. It was too much wind to go flying in, and of course witnessing an accident that we believe wind played a good part in right in front of the grandstands just prior to when we were supposed to go was a real eye-opener.
Unfortunately, as we finished the introductions, the wind continued to gust upwards about 38 knots, and we decided to put a delay in the start of the unlimited race to see what the weather was going to do if the winds were in fact going to shift for us.
The pilots all got together, crew chiefs, owners, etc. Everyone was kind of meandering around and kind of looking at the ground, and nobody wanted to be the first one to raise their hand and say, hey, I really don't want to fly today.
So we stood down, communicated with the unlimited class, Bill Harrison and his team, who in turn communicated with the racers. So we waited 30 minutes, put the race on hold, and waited until 1700, which time we planned on reconvening out in front of the aircraft to discuss the current conditions and to render a decision regarding what we were going to do. In the meantime, we sat in an area outside of the crowd and discussed what was going on. The board of directors of RAHRA, the FAA, and a number of other officials, race officials, discussed all the different options that were available to us. If the wind shifted, then we could race. If the wind didn't shift or it didn't subside, we had a very serious thing to consider, and that was the safety of the pilots and the safety of racing. We then, at the last minute, at about 5 minutes till 5, decided that it was not going to happen and that we were going to have to suspend racing for the day.
The bottom line was Bill Harrison and RAHRA made the decision that it just wasn't safe for us to race. So we actually didn't have to vote. If we had to, we would have raised our hand to stand down. It was the only safe option. We were unaware at that time who would be awarded the win, or if the win would be awarded, or if we would race the next day. But the bottom line was, when we were standing on the ramp, we all agreed that it just wasn't safe to go race in that weather.
We had another decision to make, and that was what were we going to do regarding the race, and was there an option available to us for Monday? We again polled all of our officials, those that were in charge of large volunteer groups that have a major role in safety, as well as many of the paid organizations that are out there providing that safety net for our racers. None of them felt that we could muster an adequate number of individuals to provide a safe environment for racing on Monday. So about 2 minutes till 5, we made the decision that not only were we going to suspend racing for Sunday, but we were going to be unable to produce a race on Monday.
We all wanted to race, but it just came down to safety, and it just wasn't safe.
Oh yeah, say the least. Frustrated, disappointed. But again.
Some people have said, why didn't you know? Why didn't you move the races up? And we really were not able to do that because of the afternoon schedule of other racing that was going on. And we do run a very, very tight race from race to race, and the time that's some people consider dead time when we have air show acts up in between races is really positioning time for us to stage the aircraft, launch the aircraft, and begin the race.
We're all happy because nobody's hurt. We're disappointed that we didn't race, and I'm really disappointed that we didn't get to pour the coals to her, as they say. But the safety aspect's the key to it. If you'd have had an incident, you'd have lost an airplane, irreplaceable airplane, and of course an irreplaceable person. So that gamble is not even worth really chatting about.
We were disappointed, of course. The emotions are high. Airplanes are all prepared to race, and you're sort of in the cocked and loaded and ready to fire position. But, sometimes you have to just put it on safety.
For safety purposes, I've got nothing but job well done.
Safety is first, it's paramount, and RAHRA just stood firm with us that that was a good choice.